eerste plaats.
especially if you're preaching.
En speciaal als je een boodschap brengt.
Because the reality is the truths of the Bible offend us.
Omdat de waarheid van de Bijbel ons raakt.
And if you preach the word of God as it's written, you will eventually offend somebody along the way.
Dus als jij werkelijk het woord van God predikt, dan zul je vroeg of laat iemand tegenkomen die het daar niet mee.
It's just after lunch on Tuesday afternoon, and finished 3 more hours of teaching with the Bible school students this morning. We are now halfway through with those lessons, so we've done 6 hours, and this morning was very challenging. We're talking about the crucified life, and yesterday was more defining what it was, and now today we're getting very practical. And so let's talk this morning about 3 topics. One of them was that all believers, if we're crucified with Christ in Romans 6, then we're dead to sin, and we talked about what that meant to live a life free from sin. Then we talked about being crucified to the world. Paul said in Galatians that we're crucified, that he's been crucified to the world and the world's been crucified to him. And so we talked about what does that look like on a practical basis. If you're crucified to the world, what does that look like? And we spoke about separating and the world system. And the last session was about being crucified to the opinions of men, that if we're going to live the cross-centered life and we're going to really honor Christ with our lives, there's going to be times where other people don't agree and don't like it. And what are we going to do in those times? Are we going to cave into the fear of man, or are we going to honor the Lord and live in the fear of God? So the questions we're getting as we're going through these lessons, you could tell the students are really being challenged and also really processing through and trying to learn what God has for them, and very open, and they're very grateful for the teaching. And so it's really been a powerful morning, and yesterday and today. Just got done with our marriage night, and the theme was, are you prepared for the wedding? And we talked about the wedding of the Lamb at the end of the age, and how we can prepare our marriages to reflect Jesus in the church, that when he comes back, our marriages are in a healthy condition. So they had about 40 people come out. There was mostly married couples, but there was also some singles. Some of the Bible school students came because they wanted to prepare themselves for when God did provide a spouse for them. And so we talked about, I shared my testimony with what God did for me and Brittany in our marriage and the mercy that he showed us, and also talked about 6 different areas that are necessary to work on in our marriages. And there was some worship and some time to discuss where couples could get together and talk about one area in their marriage that they really wanted to commit to work on. We heard a testimony of one of the brothers who had come, and a year ago he had given his life to Christ, and he talked about the challenge of their marriage and where it was, and how the Lord has recently been helping them to get better. And it was a really beautiful story of how Jesus can bring a marriage back together. And had a great night, and had a lot of good feedback from the people. They're very appreciative, and I believe the Lord challenged all of us in our marriages and in our lives.